Welcome back to The Count, where we're counting down the major stories of the week. I'm Kelmany Dukart. Story number 2, brain drain. Education Secretary Miguel Cardona, who worked with the Biden administration and the Department of Education to keep schools closed, calls the eminent learning loss of plummeting test scores unacceptable. Take a listen.
And we all saw recently the effect of the pandemic on student learning in the nation's report card. The results of those were just unacceptable.
All right, let's bring in the president and founder of Parents Defending Education, Nicole Neily, and Defense of Freedom Institute spokesperson, Angela Morabito. Appreciate you both being here. Angela, I want to kick it off with you. How much of these test scores that we're seeing can be attributed to lost learning from the pandemic?
That's a great question, because even before the pandemic, these test scores were abysmal. Back before anyone knew what COVID was, only around 37% of high school seniors were proficient readers. That's an abysmal number. But the pandemic took these test scores from bad to worse. They caused the worst drop in math scores among fourth graders in 30 years. So while the scores have always been terrible, the pandemic made them that much worse. And the people they harmed worse were the people at the bottom of the achievement gap. So kids who were doing okay before the pandemic might still be doing okay now generally, but it's those who needed the extra help the most who lost the most due to these union-led school closures.
Nicole, I want to get your reaction as well, and what you think that the Biden administration may now just be waking up to this.
Well, let's remember who actually kept the schools closed, because there's a tremendous amount of gaslighting going on right now. We have people like Dr. Fauci, like the teachers unions, who are trying to rewrite history and say, we wanted schools open. And let's remember, let's think back to 2020. We have the Chicago Teachers Union tweeting that the push to reopen schools is rooted in misogyny, sexism, and racism. We have people like the head of the California Teachers Union in Los Angeles saying that our babies, there's no such thing as learning loss. Our babies learned resilience this year. I mean, again, as Angela said, the people who have been most hurt by this are frankly the most disenfranchised students, overall. And so the fact that these educators and these bureaucrats are not trying to pretend like it wasn't their fault and, well, let's just get on with it. I think there also should be a little bit of reckoning for the people who got us to this place in the first place.
And to your point, Nicole, a school board in Denver has actually voted against school closures, but there's still a looming decline right now in school enrollment. Angela, I want to get your take on what you think may be driving that.
Well, the pandemic and the school closures that were caused by the teachers unions and their political allies have poured gasoline on the fire of school choice. Look at what just happened in Arizona. They opened up a universal school choice for everyone in the state, and applications are through the roof. We're also seeing folks in state and local education-related races, whether that's for your superintendent or for your school board, those are swinging towards conservatives and those who favor keeping schools open and returning schools to their actual purpose of really educating students. Parents want their kids back to the basics, and they are willing to take their kids wherever those children learn best, and they all deserve the opportunity to do it. So school choice is on the march. I believe that try as the unions might, they're just never going to be able to stop it, and that's a great thing for America's kids.
And Nicole, I'll let you pick up. We know school choice was a big factor in the midterm elections, particularly with suburban female voters.
You know what? As a result of those school closures, a lot of parents had a window into their children's education, and they realized that not only were schools not giving them the education they desire, but also that children have very different learning styles. I have 2 children. My 7-year-old and 9-year-old learn very differently. They respond to different incentives differently. And so I think parents now realize that this one-size-fits-all system that the public school and unions have been pushing on us for many years is actually not a great fit for a lot of people. And so parents, I think, are exploring more customized options that don't close. I mean, we're already seeing schools around the country talking about closing schools because of the pandemic, because of the flu this year, in addition to COVID, in addition to RSV. And so I think we know what's coming. We're fed up with it, and we're not going to be pushed around anymore.
And I also want to get both of your reaction to this. There was a concerned parent that had expressed her fears and frustration about school districts hiding gender-affirming education from parents. Take a listen to this.
we're discovering that what we thought as the breakdown in partnership between schools and parents has been going on a lot longer than we have known. So it's terrifying that there's truly an agenda to radicalize our children and pull them away from their parents, to destroy the family unit.
Angela, I think that this is happening in a lot of instances where parents are saying that, they disagree with the curriculum or that it's being introduced at a particular age, but then you have educators going behind parents' backs. How would you describe what's happening here?
This is an attempt by the progressive left to force gender ideology on children and to usurp the role of parents as the primary authority in the lives of their children. This is absolutely ridiculous. First, because the test scores are abysmal. Every minute that is spent on driving gender ideology into the minds of children is a minute that is not being spent on reading, writing, and arithmetic. And it is extremely telling that just in the past few days, there was a Pediatric Professionals Association that came out and said children under the age of 18 should not be allowed to get a tattoo because that is something that permanently alters their body. Those same folks, some of them in the same breath, will turn around and say, oh, yes, they should be allowed to change their gender and not tell their parents. It just doesn't add up. And it's ridiculous. This is only one more reason parents need to be in the driver's seat of their children's education, and they deserve absolute transparency into what happens in the classroom.
Yeah, and Angela, to your point, I had just interviewed Chloe Cole yesterday, who had detransitioned. Remarkable story, but a lot of regret that she lives with transitioning too young and what she still has to face and deal with today. Nicole, final thoughts from you.
We receive stories all the time from across the country about these parental exclusion policies. We actually have an open lawsuit right now against the Linn-Mar School District in rural Iowa, which has one of these parental exclusion policies that say that parents have no right to know this. We've seen things like this coming out of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Parents are being cut out, and students are being taught that their families are not only unsupportive but unsafe. As Angela said, this drives a wedge between parents and children intentionally, and once that relationship is broken, it's very hard to repair. And so the fact that this is being done to our children with our tax dollars behind our back is insult to injury as well as unconstitutional.
Well, Nicole Neily and Angela Morabito, appreciate you both amplifying this issue. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.